"You did not choose me, but I chose you." Jesus says to his disciples, he chose them. They did not choose him. This immediately gives the idea that believers are not the ones who chose Jesus, but that he is the one that did it. A proof text for an elect group. All who follow Jesus and are saved are thus chosen by God. It is said. Is that what Jesus meant? No. How can I say that? Based on two things. One, what Jesus is talking about, and two, who he is talking to. What is Jesus talking about? Jesus goes on in the same sentence to say, "And appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain." Jesus is talking about choosing the disciples for the purpose of bearing fruit. Is this about salvation? No. To whom is Jesus saying this? Only to the 11 apostles. Yes, not the 12, but the 11. Judas Iscariot left the room 2 chapters before. Judas, having received a piece of bread, he then went out immediately. And John had also made clear, Jesus knew all about Judas Iscariot. There are some of you who do not believe, for Jesus knew from the beginning who they were who did not believe, and who would betray him. Jesus did not choose Judas to bear good fruit, for he already knew where Judas's heart lay. John wrote next that Jesus had said, "Therefore, I have said to you that no one can come to me unless it has been granted to him by my Father." John is telling us that Jesus points to Judas as an example of what he had meant when he said, "All that the Father gives me will come to me. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him." Some say, "But I thought this was about the elect. Isn't this about a chosen group of God to salvation? Isn't that what no one can come to Jesus unless the Father draws him mean?" Out of context, you can make these verses say that, yes. But in context, Jesus then begins to explain by quoting the prophets, "And they shall all be taught by God." So was Judas not taught by the Father? No, that's not what Jesus says. Jesus goes on to explain this quote from the prophets. Jesus mentions his purpose for saying it. Jesus goes on to say, "Therefore, everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me." How do we know this is an explanation? Because Jesus says, "Therefore, everyone." Therefore what? Therefore, everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to Jesus. And who gets to hear and have the opportunity to learn? As Jesus just quoted from the prophets, "They shall all be taught by God." Everyone. This is in accord with what John wrote earlier. Jesus is the true light, which gives light to every man who comes into the world. And as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God. So, all are given light, John 1. All are taught by the Father, John 6. Both of these are explicit. Both agree with each other. But only those who receive him are then given the right to become children of God, John 1. Only those who hear and learn come to Jesus, John 6. Both of these are explicit. Both agree with each other. To finish off with John 6 then, the Father draws to Jesus and these come to him, so that Jesus, loses none of this, is all true. But these are those who had responded already. The drawing by the Father and the coming to Jesus does not occur until after these have heard and learned from the Father. Then these earlier verses are fully applicable, for that is Jesus' explanation. So, why did Judas Iscariot not believe? Because he did not hear and learn. For only those who hear and learn come to Jesus, since as Jesus explained, that is how they are drawn by the Father and given to Jesus, and thus come to him. So, what is John 15:16 about? You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you, that you should bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain. Conclusion. John 15:16 is about Jesus choosing the 11 out of those he had already seen believing. What for? To bear fruit. For example, a fruit appointed for the 11 was to lead the beginning of the church. In John 15:16, Jesus is not talking about salvation, but about tasks on earth.